What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Ringside Intel's Parts Unknown podcast. I am, of course, Jason Burgos, and I would like to welcome the newest member of the Ringside family. Some call him Baby Blue. Some parts of the world he's known as Hollywood. Others know him as just a over-the-top film addict. But in the end, I know on this show he's going to be the good cop to my bad cop, and that is the one and only Jose Maldonado. Senor H. Wood, how are you doing for this very first edition of the Parts Unknown Record?
Oh, I'm doing great. Even much better with that after that intro, man. Really appreciate you bringing a brother out, you know what I mean? But dressed to the nines, got the New Japan hat on, got to represent.
I like it.
And yeah, man, I'm excited to get into some wrestling talk with you, man. Big weekend and big goings on in general. So this being our first episode, really excited to kick it off, and I hope y'all dig it, man, for sure.
And we, of course, I mean, we're days after WrestleMania, so obviously this podcast we're going to talk a lot about WrestleMania and just post-WrestleMania thoughts. What do we think of the card? Kind of just a grading of nights 1 and 2. And of course, we're going to start with night 1, WrestleMania 40. We're gonna go in biggest disappointments from night 1. We're gonna go favorite moments, our personal favorites from night 1, and then what do we just feel was the best, like in terms of what was the most important kind of storyline things for the future of the storytelling, what's gonna happen on future shows, the rest of 2024. So first, what was your, because for me, night 1 was not as good as night 2. Night 2 is a lot better for me, and it's funny too because the last couple night 1s have been really good. Like 2 years ago, we had Austin and Kevin Owens, which was great. Last year we had the main event with the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Night 1s were the better nights of the last couple. It's flipped this year. So of the night 1 matches, or everything that came together, what was your kind of most disappointing? What was your biggest letdown from that?
Honestly, the Usos match, I think, was the biggest disappointment. Yeah, you know, a lot of people seem to agree with that, too. Like, there was a lot of hype going into that when it had the potential to be a show stealer for the first night. And that has been part of the Bloodline storyline that's been going on for a couple years now. So to see that come to a head, you know, one-on-one, I think people were expecting a lot from that match. Not sure what happened. Maybe it was, you know, I don't know if it was lack of chemistry. Maybe there was some kind of miscommunication, maybe an injury that happened that we don't know about, but definitely didn't deliver. And I think that's what helped drag night 1 down a lot compared to night 2, because that was one of the featured matches, you know what I mean? Like Sammy and Gunther delivered, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit until the main event, but Jimmy and Jay was the other highlight of night 1, and it just didn't deliver like everybody was expecting, you know, and it's a real shame too, because the story was there. Jay has gotten himself to a really great position on the card, you know, really has the crowd behind him. Jimmy carved out his little niche as well with his character, got a lot of laughs, you know, the last few months. And, you know, they had the opportunity to really do something there, and I don't think they delivered.
Yeah, and I think it shows you how much, as talented as they are, they're just really good as a tag team together. And no disrespect, but they're not outstanding, best in the world kind of wrestlers, but together they just have they read each other so well, and they do things together so well, and they can tell a story so well together. For me, kind of going in the direction of tag teams, because WrestleMania has really developed kind of like a history for ladder matches, and that was the biggest disappointment for me. The 6-pack ladder match, it wasn't, it had moments, it had those violent moments where people are going through ladders, people go through tables, but that was my biggest concern going into the match, was just too many bodies. That's kind of sometimes the drawback of Money in the Bank, when they have too many bodies, but at least it's a bunch of singles guys, it's like 8 tops. You had 12 dudes in there. Now, without a doubt, R-Truth had a good moment. Him looking for the hot tag before a pin was fantastic. The guy's on a roll right now. But, yeah, too many people. I just think it was a cluster F. You know, it was just, it wasn't as smooth, as interesting. Like, if you would have just made it Judgment Day, maybe Waller Theory, New Catch Republic, and Awesome Truth, or just those 3, I think you would have had an unbelievable match. But I get it. You're trying to get everybody on this show. They had the bigger goal of separating the titles. So I see it, but that was by far the biggest disappointment for me. What would you say is your favorite moment? And just to remind people out there, night one had, like as Jose said, Jimmy and Jey Uso. It had the ladder match. It had Gunther Zayn. It had Rey Mysterio and Andrade versus Santos Escobar, Dominic Mysterio, Lynch and Ripley, and also had the big tag team match. But what was of all the matches on night one? What was your favorite?
Honestly, the moment that caught me by surprise, how much I really enjoyed it, was what you mentioned, the R-Truth getting his moment. Hadn't realized how many years it had been since he was 0-7 at Mania going in. He'd been delivering so much entertainment over the last bit with the Judgment Day storyline and everything. So for him to get his moment was so unexpected, but so it was really great. It really added a lot to it. And Sammy and Gunther, like there was a lot of love for Chad Gable to maybe get that spot, understandably so. But if we're being honest, Sammy's the one that truly deserved this WrestleMania moment. What he had with the Bloodline storyline, everything like that, you know what I mean? If he couldn't get a world title win, this was the next best thing to reward the man for years and years of really hard work. The Gunther Intercontinental title reign had so much prestige and so much equity to give. So if you're going to give it to somebody, Sammy's a very deserving recipient. The crowd was into it. The family dynamic and the moment of him walking out with KO being the last one to kind of pump him up right before he went out, it was just masterfully done. So honestly, that would be the best moment from night one, for sure.
And what's crazy is that, I mean, and it would be great if Sammy could be a world champion. We'll see. Who knows if it's in the cards or not. But to just if it doesn't happen, he's done a lot. He's had 2 main event opportunities, kind of not main event, 2 main events, but he was main event last year. And to hang your hat on the fact that you were part of ending the longest tag team streak in history, and then the following year ended the longest Intercontinental reign in history. I mean, even if he doesn't become world champion, having those 2 historic moments on his resume is unbelievable. For me, I probably would go with Gunther Sammy in terms of just a pure match level. No surprise. I mean, I think everybody earmarked that one is probably going to be the top match just because of the 2 individuals involved. They're so talented. But I'm going to go with the main event just because in defeat, I felt relief. Because if Cody and Seth had won, I would have been concerned. I would have been like, I don't know if he's winning night 2. But when The Rock and Roman won, very entertaining, really good. Like the first 10 minutes of that match are very meh, whatever, it's okay. But the last 15 were great, highly entertaining. But knowing that the deck was stacked against Cody, I think that confirmed to all of us, okay, he's winning. They're not going to have Bloodline win night 1 and then Roman to win night 2.
For sure.
We all love Roman, but that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. And then not just the win, how they got the win. Rock pinned Cody clean right in the middle with the people's elbow. Mm-hmm. Rock got his W. And it was almost like, Cody's taking this L to get the W the next night. So to your point, I think anybody who was paying attention and reading between the lines, it kind of set the table for Cody's big moment the night after. And almost like he paid a due to get his moment. And I think everybody was totally okay with that trade-off.
And there's very few things good that came out of the pandemic, but breaking WrestleMania into 2 nights was probably one of the best things.
Oh, yeah.
And to be able to do this, where you can do a 2-night story. Yeah. And this was it. This is a perfect example of a 2-night story that how you can use it. It's phenomenal. I think we're probably going to both agree on this. I mean, best and most important moment, storyline-wise, on night 1 was probably the tag match, right? The Bloodline winning? That was the biggest thing?
Yeah, for sure. It had to be. This was one of the biggest matches that they could have done. Rock being involved already puts it on another level, and the pivot to this was so well done and so important. You know what I mean? Because they actually listened to the crowd response, and this is what they gave them instead. Yeah. So for them to kind of make the best out of that situation, storyline wise, they absolutely delivered. And there's so many moving parts, not just to what it led into in night 2, but what it leads into in the future. With everything they've set up with Roman and Rock. Possibly being, a little rift there for who's the true head of the table, and that, fed into the result of the following night. But yeah, that tag main event came off as huge as they advertised it, and they absolutely delivered. It really felt like a big deal. And props to The Rock being, 52 years old and a walking tank, still having, mobility enough to deliver in the ring. The dude looked great. That goes without question. But he was able to keep up with them. You know what I mean? The match started off a little bit slow, but once it got cooking, Rock was in there every step of the way, and he looked great compared to the other 3 who are there, all the time. So.
Yeah, and going on from that, let's move on to night two. Same questions. We'll go first. Same disappointment. And just to remind everybody, night two had Seth versus Drew, Final Testament versus Bobby Lashley, Street Profits, Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, U.S. title match, LA Knight, AJ Styles, Io Sky and Bailey. Oh my lord, Io Sky is just so amazing. Clearly, she's not going to be in my disappointments thing. And then of course we had Roman and Cody. I feel like we're probably going to go have the same thing, but biggest disappointment from night two that really didn't have very much disappointments.
That's and you hit the nail on the head. Really did. There was really a lot of disappointment in night two, and they're really coming into their own with the 2-night format. If I had to pick one, honestly, it might be the Bobby Lashley, the Final Testament.
Yes, without a doubt, it was boring.
Yeah, it was a massacre. Is what it was. It was a glorified squash, and it was another one of those just getting everybody on the card for the sake of getting them on the card. Yeah. And happy for Karrion Kross and Scarlett to actually make it onto a Mania, given that they were released, came back. They're obviously very high on Triple H's list to have that prominent spot, but. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to that other than just Bobby and Street Profits, wiping the floor with them in due course, and just moving on with the night. It was entertainment for what it was. It wasn't a train wreck by any means. Like there wasn't anything particularly bad about it. It just was completely overshadowed by everything else on the card.
And it was just a 6-man hardcore match. Like, it's supposed to be this Philly street fight. You had this unique theme. I felt nothing unique about Philly. Like, this was, considering that they've done so many, there's very few things to complain about. They've done so many smart things in advance. Like, this, since it's a 2-night card, a big card, this should have happened out in the street. And we were talking about a few weeks ago, I went and watched Goldust versus Roddy Piper Backlot Brawl. At least at the beginning, it started in the back lot. It was out in the back lot, and they were fighting, and people getting hit by cars. Like this should have been out in the street somewhere in Philly, and they should have just fought. And it was just a hardcore match in the ring. It was and I think some of the, Final Testament to me is losing momentum. Street Profits are losing momentum. That would have been an interesting way for them to stand out.
Yeah, this would have been a perfect opportunity to employ a cinematic match. We've seen in the past that those things. Oh yeah. It can when done right, it adds to a Mania, and this would have been a perfect time to do it because they try to add some elements, and those were fun elements. Snoop being on commentary was a trip. Bubba Ray Dudley.
Oh god, he was killing me. He was just endless talking. No, Snoop Dogg, no more. Please, no more stuff. Why was he there 2 years in a row? Come on, Gin and Juice stuff. Come on.
Well, don't you see? He is the WWE ex-champ. What do they call that? He got the big gold belt, whatever the hell that is. Made the rounds in the Super Bowl. Everybody got a turn, but they try to employ some interesting things in there with Bubba Ray getting the pop and everything. And Philly being the home of hardcore, ECW, all of that, but it didn't fit. If we're gonna. Maybe switching that with one of the lesser matches from night one might have been the move, but it didn't really take anything away from night two. It just wasn't. It didn't match up with everything else.
Yeah, even the best card's always going to have a sinker, and that was definitely it. I mean, in terms of favorite moment, Cody winning is everybody's favorite moment. That's clearly the moment. So let's go away from that.
Right.
We know that's going to be our choice. So aside from favorite moment, Cody winning, what was kind of the next favorite moment on night one for you?
The world title match. I think everybody, Drew and Seth, that match was delivered perfectly by everybody involved. And I mean everybody, down to CM Punk, down to Damien's cash-in. Drew and Seth played their roles terrifically. And I really want to spend a little time giving Seth his flowers for this weekend. Because, my God, that man is the most selfless top guy in the company right now. Dude took 2 L's on back-to-back nights. He emphatically lost to Drew. That was as clean of a loss as you can get. I mean, he got hit.
Although he kicked out 17 claymores.
Totally fair. Totally valid. You know what I mean? The Drew was spamming finishes like it was 2K, and Seth was still kicking out. But, it was done so well. Drew went over clean at the end. You could tell that it was an emotional moment. And there was a lot of that. That wrestling's at its best when it's walking that line between, fiction and reality. And you know that this meant a lot to Drew. You could tell that Seth was really emotional with everything that he had been through leading up to that, kind of passing the torch out to Drew. And that was such a great moment. Drew giving it, the belt to his wife. The confrontation with Punk was so absolutely great and so in character. You just knew Drew was salivating at the opportunity to rub it in Punk's face, and that ended up, he had so much hubris that it cost him the title. Punk getting a little bit of physicality, without getting too far into it, leading to Damien cashing in, and it was just so well done. Loved every minute of that match, both for the match itself and for the story.
And we're talking about throwing flowers. I'm gonna throw a couple flowers my way, because over on the Ringside YouTube, I called it. I said Drew's gonna win, Cash and Damian Priest 2 weeks ago. Go look it up, people. It was there up 2 weeks ago. I saw it. I knew it was gonna happen. I was excited as if I didn't know it was gonna happen.
Flowers, for God's sake. Come on.
Yeah, that's the next big one. So since you covered that so well, I'll just throw a quick shout out to. I mean, I'm sure there's a haters out there, but if you're not down with Logan Paul at this point, man, I mean, just suck it, because this guy is so talented. Obviously we know the skills in the ring, but what makes him different and already light years ahead of pretty much anyone in NXT, and nothing against NXT people. There's a lot of talented people, but this guy's ability to talk a story. He can talk his way and put butts in seats, to use an old school term. So shout out to Logan Paul. No, he was really good in that match. That match was a lot of fun. And also Io Sky, gosh, she's just unbelievable. That move where Bailey went for the face, the face plan. What's it called? The rose.
The rose plan.
Yep. And this girl flipped through it.
Oh my God! And the crowd was there for it. My God, they responded like everybody else at home was responding. Like, oh, where was that?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Io just pulls that out at least once a match. She's amazing like that.
And just quick shout out. I didn't have high hopes. I like both guys a lot, but I didn't know if it would be a good match. But LA Knight, AJ Styles, that was a good, physical, interesting match. Was surprised. I thought AJ was going to win. I thought we might get the Good Brothers might come, fully turn. We start like a more a turn club again. But no, LA Knight got the clean win, which he deserved. You didn't want to see him lose there, but that was a really good match.
Yeah, that was the most underrated match of the weekend for me. Like, honestly, guys, it's just two really good dudes delivering, and LA Knight getting his moment to shine. And you could always count on AJ for a good match. So that was tremendous. I thought that match was great. For sure.
And there's a lot of people felt like Rock looked good. I mean, I felt like he looked good for a heavily built 52-year-old guy. Nothing against that, but his performance made me I know the wife hates him, but what Edge and Christian are doing at their age on a match level was really impressive, because they're almost the same age, honestly. But also, AJ Styles is 46. This dude's still hitting 450 springboards. Like, it's unbelievable what he can do at his age. So moving on to the last point, talking like kind of final post WrestleMania 40 thoughts. What was, I think we both could know what the most important storyline moment of what night 2 was, but is there any specific intricacies of Cody's win that was key? Was it the involvement of the legends, maybe kind of like tipping their cap, you're the man, now you're the guy going forward? Was it the celebration in? Was it the weird thing we saw on YouTube and social, The Rock and Roman kind of like splitting as they walked a little bit? Is it setting up Rock and Rock maybe John Cena? Like, what was the biggest takeaway storyline wise from the main event, which completely delivered as any main event could? We all knew that there might be run-ins. We all knew a couple of them. Stone Cold all disappointed us. We were hoping it was probably Stone Cold, but Undertaker delivered in his spot. What was your biggest storyline takeaway from the main event?
The enormity of it. I mean, really, if we're being honest, nostalgia aside, this main event deserves to be put up there with any Mania main event in the history. Like, really, this was one of the most anticipated. There was so much hype built up for this that it would have been easy for them to fall short. They didn't. This was massive. The crowd was there. They gave everybody the happy ending, and everybody involved. If I really had to touch on one thing, it would be that Undertaker portion of it. Because I think a lot of the rumors and a lot of the wishful thinking was Stone Cold showing up for one more confrontation with The Rock. But in hindsight, honestly, looking at it and seeing some of the discourse online, the Undertaker made a whole lot of sense, because if you think back, if this isn't a Rock story in terms of the antagonist, it's a Roman story. Stone Cold himself doesn't really have a connection to the Bloodline. Undertaker does, because if we look back, maybe the first signs of Roman as the tribal chief, we got shades of that when he beat Taker at Mania 33 in that main event. You know what I mean? Like the night after when he showed up on Raw and he's standing there and getting booed for like 10 minutes straight. having them all in the palm of his hand. That's straight up the tribal chief before we even knew what the tribal chief was. And, even if you want to tie the Rock portion into this, Rock has history with Stone Cold. The Rock was walking around talking, calling himself the final boss this whole time. Who was the true final boss of WrestleMania for 30 years? Taker. So, of course, Taker would show up, give him his receipt, and kind of remind everybody that it's still his yard, as Roman likes to say. So I was totally happy with Taker being the guy instead of Stone Cold. I don't think it took away from the match at all, even though, people would have loved to hear the glass break one more time, but Taker, doing his teleportation thing, I thought it was phenomenal, and, just really added to the enormity of the match. I mean, the fact that John Cena, one of the greatest of all time, ran in right before that, and that's overshadowed by this, shows how huge and how many levels there was to this match delivering. It was just tremendous stuff. It really was.
And it's funny for me. I mean, I was as much a John Cena hater as anyone, and I'm as big a John Cena fan now as I've ever been. Like when he came out, I mean, I knew it was likely, but when he did, it just wrecked house. So good, so entertaining. And adding to what you were saying about Undertaker, I also looked at it as like, I think, and we especially saw it after Cody won, and then also on Raw in a lot of ways too. He's one of the top locker room leaders, if not the locker room leader right now. And Undertaker was that for like 2 decades, 3 decades. So it's kind of like that locker room leader stepping up to pass it on to the next locker room leader. I looked at it in that kind of way too. But yeah, it had a lot of what's making WWE so good now, but those shades of Attitude Era, and that was one of the funnest parts of that Attitude Era really brought compared to other eras, is those run-ins where the music hits, the big star comes running to the ring. Like, that was a concept. We saw it for years with Stone Cold and The Rock and all kinds of things. So it had those moments and those big surprises and just the levels. Like Jay and Jimmy have their little moment. Then Solo comes out. Cena cleans house. Rock comes out, takes him. Undertaker, it was just masterful. But also, one of the big takeaways for me was just kind of peeling back the curtain a little bit. Like, that they didn't end the show, like they continue to show the celebration of what the wrestlers and all those kind of things, just really not just crowning Cody as the WWE Universal Champion, but really crowning him as the man in as big a way you really can. Like, you can't have any more than the entire locker room come out, and not even just like a few of his narrative friends like Jay and Kevin or something like that. Like, it was Randy Orton, it was CM Punk, LA Knight was and also I also liked I'm not a big fan of hers, but I liked the touch of having Brandy out there. That was a cool little thing for her to show up again, just showing like this is sort of like a family affair. It's Roman's family, it's Cody's family, Mama Rose and all that stuff. She was there. Like, it's really the families. And his song says there's more than one royal family wrestling. So, she's a part of the family. She's a part of the story for him, too, in a lot of ways. So,
for sure. It was a really a natural fit. Say what you want about Brandy. Her being out there, it was a given. It really was, And, if Dustin wasn't under AEW contract, he would have been out there, too. The family element would have been a whole lot bigger if it was allowed to be. But touching on your point about peeling back the curtain, it really did have a different feel, especially at the end when Cody gets the mic and he's calling out Bruce Pritchard and calling out Triple H himself. You know what I mean? Like, talk about really peeling back the curtain.
When you did Bruce Pritchard, you can heard the groan in the crowd. Like,
yeah, but it's like you know what I mean? He's kind of a Vince guy, maybe not, but so Cody just being perfectly honest, if anybody knows the backstory of that, is that Bruce had a very big hand in Cody returning to WWE. He was the first phone call that he made, and Bruce, helped navigate all of that. Despite his history with Vince, Bruce has just as much history, if not more so, with the Rhodes family. So, that felt natural, and the fact that it was not so much allowed, because I'm sure that was just Cody, calling audible, but the fact that made it onto the show really does show that it's a little looser, a little bit more just kind of like, they're giving the fans a lot more credit than they had in the past. A lot of hardcore fans know what's going on. When they see something like that, it doesn't feel as out of place because we're as privy to as much information as we ever have been. So for Cody to take advantage of that and kind of let everybody in, just really added to the entire moment and just made it feel that much more special. And Cody understood the assignment. You see him thanking Michael Cole and all the announcers. You see him thanking the camera guys and everything. He understood the enormity of this moment. He's the guy now, and that means for the entire company. So, it was great to see. It had a different feel to it and made it stand out loud.
So for everybody, wherever you're watching this, wherever you're listening to this, please like, share, subscribe. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your comments. How'd you feel about WrestleMania 40? And it goes to the next question because there's a lot of talk. I mean, on a financial level, revenue level, interest, social views, this was the biggest WrestleMania of all time. They did a fantastic job of not only hyping and building towards this event, but just months of hard work and great storyline and great building and that made everybody care. It wasn't just this just started recently. A lot of this all started months ago, and it really worked towards this. But in your mind, Triple H said it was the biggest WrestleMania of all time. Was it the best WrestleMania? Probably the biggest, but was it the best WrestleMania for you, or do you feel there's another WrestleMania out there that was a little more for you?
It's always such a tough question, man, because we're talking about 40 years of Mania. Me and you were OGs, you know what I mean? We've seen a lot of great moments in the past, and it's always hard to top. This one's it's probably in the top 5 if I'm being honest. Just the enormity of it like that. But pointing back to just WrestleMania 3 being as historic as it was with Hogan, Andre, Savage, and Steamboat, but WrestleMania X7 is such a huge mania in the lexicon because it delivered just so large and was such a turning point and so many great matches, Rock and Austin at the end, Triple H and Taker, everything it's up and down that card, just banger after banger after banger. That's like the bar in terms of WrestleManias. I'm not sure if this one met it just because of some things like the Uso match under delivering or the hardcore match being kind of a sticking out like a sore thumb. But no, this Mania definitely deserves the credit. And if anybody wants to argue for this being the best of all time, I wouldn't hold it against them, just on the strength of the 2 large main events and some of the other banger matches that were around. And we didn't even touch on like Rhea and Becky. You know what I mean? Like Becky, reportedly had like 102-degree fever and still kept up with Rhea the best she could. And 2 years in a row, Rhea going over 2 of the biggest women in the history of WWE, Charlotte and Becky. If it wasn't obvious before, it's obvious now that Rhea is she's the cornerstone. You know what I mean? Like, she is the future of the women's division. Yep. So this Mania had a lot going for it. I don't know if I call it the best, but it's up there for sure.
Yeah, and just to go, I mean, X7 still, that's the one for me. And for people that don't remember X7 and why it was so good, you had weird matches like Kane in a hardcore match with Raven in the Big Show for the hardcore championship, which was actually pretty entertaining at the time.
Yeah, it was.
But you had Jericho versus William Regal. China was on the card, but Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon in a street fight, that was really good. It was one of the few WrestleManias that had it was TLC 2. Every single TLC match was great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You had Stone Cold versus The Rock in the main event with Stone Cold's big turn. And then also, still one of my favorite underrated WrestleMania matches was way before the later matches, but Undertaker Triple H, their first WrestleMania match of the 3 they had was in this one. That one was really good before the streak really got as much as attention as it did. So yeah, X7 is one of my favorite. X8 is another high one for me just because there was a lot of stuff, but it had Rock and Hogan. I mean that was another special one too. But yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. So moving on from there. But continuing on WrestleMania, but continuing on the fallout of WrestleMania. Cody's the man now. We're talking about it. Cody's the face of the company. He's going to be
He finished the story.
He's going to get along. Yeah, finish the story. He's going to build a new story now, new chapter and everything like that. Where does WWE go with Cody next? Obviously, they clearly on Raw after WrestleMania, they set up him and Rock. Him and Rock are going to clash at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe much later in the year Survivor Series and then start leading to WrestleMania next year. But in the next few months, the next 6 months out, what would be what's your fantasy booking for Cody? What's the 3 opponents you'd really like to see Cody face in this build to building his legacy as a champion?
It's an interesting question because, honest to God, it never dawned on me that now that he took the Universal title, he's a SmackDown guy, technically. You know what I mean? Damien.
Although I will say, Triple H said I think a couple of days ago that the draft is coming up soon.
Right,
they're going to do the draft in a month, so that'll change a lot of things.
Perfect opportunity to shake things up.
Pick whoever you want because they might be together anyway.
100%. And it's going to be really important this first feud because this is a really good opportunity to elevate somebody that maybe is on the cusp. I'm always gonna. This is not likely, but I'm always gonna go to bat for Shinsuke. Shinsuke, I think, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you can plug him into anything. Well,
You can, but after he took that loss to Ilya, it's like, man, I feel like Shinsuke's on the way out or something.
that's a real good point. And let's be honest, it would just be another lost feud. There's no way he's taking the title off of Cody. So all right, we can push Shinsuke to the side. But the draft presents some interesting opportunities too. I'd like to see Mello. Mello might be a good splash to, come draft time. You know what I mean? Like I think Mello kind of, was the guy in NXT for a while. Awesome match quality, and maybe putting him in a bad spot to kind of lose his first feud out of the box. But with the attention that he would get, kind of bringing it to Cody, I don't think that would be detrimental to him. If anything, it would put a big spotlight on his skills.
I remember a long time ago during Bret Hart's title reign when Razor Ramon was fairly new. That was one of his opponents. Doink I think was like a opponent when he was new too. So yeah, I mean it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it makes sense. It'd be fun.
Yeah, wouldn't mind seeing that. AJ lost to LA Knight. I wouldn't mind seeing either one of those two. You know what I mean? Like face versus face probably wouldn't work with LA Knight, but AJ being an opponent for Cody, maybe this time he does get the OC involved, something like that. Yeah. If nothing else, the matches would be absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I don't know, like he's kind of a Raw guy, but I really, really, really like Bronson Reed for whatever reason. You know what I mean? I think he's not your typical superstar, you know what I mean, and not just the size wise, but he got a feel to him that I think has been missing for so long. Because I mean, under the previous regime, there was a certain body type, kind of a cookie cutter kind of thing, where, with the exception of Kevin Owens, everybody just kind of had like similar builds or like similar kind of things. Bronson Reed is kind of an anomaly in that, and the dude can go. You know what I mean? Like, he's shown in the past that, different kind of matches, and this is a good year for him to kind of break out and show what he's got. So I wouldn't mind seeing a Bronson Reed plugged in there, at least for, kind of a preliminary feud to get Cody to like SummerSlam or like Money in the Bank or something like that.
I actually, of my three, I have AJ Styles too, and I would definitely, I think they have to just put the Good Brothers with them. Turn him heel. They really need to turn Mia Yim heel. I mean, she's kind of just floundering at this point. They just need something to do with her, and that actually probably would really reinvigorate her career a lot. And it'd be like Bloodline away, but different. All those elements that made that fun. You can reach. Maybe you don't do it right away, but something within the next 6 months I'd like to see. Another one is, and I can see this totally happening. I mean, I definitely would have seen it in the Vince era, but even now I can see it, and it makes a splash. I thought they might do it yesterday, but they more set up Rock. But I feel like he's coming back soon. Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman versus Cody would be interesting, and boy, what a test. You're not facing a gang, you're facing pretty much a one-man gang. And Braun is much better as a bad guy. Yep. Make him go bad. It was cool to see him back on the roster, but him being goody-goody, Ricochet's teammates, when he was tormenting Roman Reigns to death, putting him on a stretcher, and then throwing him off the thing, like in the parking lot or whatever and stuff like that back in the day. Like he's just better. He's just better as a bad guy. So him being this scary monster that Cody has to deal with would be real fun, and it'd be a big splash for him to come back. The other one, I enjoy his work, but he's kind of in a weird spot now. He's kind of just stuck, as entertaining as it is. And there's a built-in story. We know they have a friendship. We know how he said in depth how important he was to his success outside WWE. But Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens and him have a history. It would be a great match. I love Kevin as a good guy, but it just feels like at this point maybe it's about time that he maybe turns, and him turning to get the world title, it'd be interesting. They have to set it up to make it make sense, but man, that would be a whole lot of fun. I'd like to see those now. But moving on from Cody, Bloodline. I mean, we've been going Bloodline for like 3 years now, and I would have said to you after year one, please end it now. God, put it out of its misery, and it's still here, and it's still fantastic. Paul Heyman famously said, like, last year they were like in inning 3 of this chapter. Chances are they're probably inning 5 or 6 now, but they still got a few innings left. Where do we go with Bloodline? Like, where does this go? Triple H also said in the press conference after the event that the next chapter of Roman Reigns' story will blow people's minds. I know at some point they're gonna make him a good guy.
Yeah.
Every great bad guy becomes a even better good guy, and that's gonna happen at some point. But where do you see the bloodline going? Where do you think that this storyline goes in the next 6 months?
I think it's time for the inevitable crumble. Like, really, this was, with Roman losing the title that had meant so much to the bloodline, kind of his keys to the kingdom, his claim to being, the guy. I think, that now we start to see, kind of Solo. It's been, even during the match, you see Solo kind of yelling at Roman to finish him. Like Solo could be kind of like fed up with not getting the results. Solo could kind of be, hyping himself up as like, well, if he can't get it done, I'm gonna get it done, and kind of overstepping his bounds. That could lead to tension with Jimmy. Jay kind of doing his own thing. He's set up to be the number one contender now against Damian. It'll be interesting to how that goes. But like down the road, if they're really gonna set up Roman and Rock, I totally agree with you that Roman needs to be the good guy in that scenario. Not just because it'd be a more natural fit at this point, which is so hilarious to say. The Rock as a heel at this point in his career is just the way to go, but it really has been. He's been having way too much fun with it.
So good. Yeah.
He's been so good. It really has. Rock doesn't get anything from beating Roman. And if Roman's going to beat The Rock, it makes more sense to make him the babyface. And this is maybe the last chance to establish him as the babyface that they always hoped he would be. Given this run as the tribal chief, there's a lot of history there that they could work in. And Roman coming out on top as the good guy doesn't have to be, a John Cena level type babyface. It could be the same badass Roman that we used to see in The Shield and we've seen with the Tribal Chief. Him coming out as a good guy, I think is the end game here. But seeing Roman just a shell of himself for a few months, kind of doubting himself, I think that'd be a fun evolution of where this storyline goes. It'll probably do a lot for Solo, and if apparently WWE assigned Jacob Fatu. He can kind of get worked into this as well. Who knows? That's an X factor that can maybe show up in the draft or down the line. There's a lot of directions they can go with it. So there's a lot of intrigue that could happen. That just because Roman lost the belt doesn't mean the storyline's over, not by any means.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting how to do it because with Roman, you almost got to plan out 6 months a year because he's probably going to take at least 2-3 months off before we see him again.
Yeah.
And I think you nailed in one direction I'm going, that Jacob Fatu, because I feel I can see this very much in some ways becoming NWO Hollywood versus Wolfpack. And I can see the next progression is Bloodline gets bigger, but it gets split. Because you got Jacob Fatu coming in. Let's not forget Tama Tonga's signed too. Mm-hmm. If you mentioned it earlier, who's the real tribal chief?
Right.
Maybe Rock is trying to say, hey, I beat Cody, even though, Cody was done. He just picked the bones. Like, I beat Cody. You couldn't beat him. You need all my help. Like, I can see that. Although with Rock, again, timing, other things, you can't do it on a weekly basis like you would really love. But I can see that where it's going. Like, you have Rock with his bloodline. You have a Jacob Fatu. You have a Tama Tonga. You have, I can see Solo being the one who leaves. And we all know it's going to be great. And we all want to see the Usos get back together. So the Usos getting back together. And big picture, and I told the wife about this too. Big picture, you have this bad guy bloodline team. You got Roman. He gets reunited with the Usos. The Usos reunited. And it's Sami Zayn. If you get Roman, the Usos, and Sami Zayn all back together as good guys, oh my lord. Because people freaking love them as bad guys.
Yeah.
What is it going to be like if they're good guys and it's also Roman's like showing love to Sammy? I really appreciated your friendship. I'm sorry what happened. Like that would set. It would be a perfect kind of storyline the last few months going into WrestleMania, and I would love to see that because that's like how much more can we do? The Usos broke up. Solo will probably leave. Yeah. Sammy was in, he left. Roman, you can do but so much. The only thing I can see is you grow but break it up.
Yeah,
but,
that would be such a great use of the goodwill they built up together. It really would. Yeah.
Yeah.
And down the line,
you got to revisit Sammy and Roman. You got to.
Yeah, and this might be where War Games ends up. Those four on one side, and Jacob Fatu, Solo, Tama Tonga, and a fourth X member on the other side. That could be
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that could work for Survivor Series, and they got plenty of time to build it up. So.
Yeah. All right. So one last time before we get to the last question, please, wherever you're watching us, wherever you're listening, like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think of how WrestleMania went, what could be coming up in the future, and just, hey, got questions for the show, just let us know, throw it at us. Last question, and this is just a little news question, kind of getting away from WrestleMania a little bit. We covered it on Ringside Intel this week. I wrote a story about it. Is rumors about Nick Khan, a bit of a strategy for 2024 to finally open the WWE Forbidden Door. We've seen little things in where we saw Mickie James a couple years ago at the Royal Rumble. This year's Royal Rumble, we saw Jordan Grace. We saw Shinsuke go to Noah and to face Great Muta in his final match. So we've seen these little things, and then over the weekend, GCW, which also does the Josh Barnett Bloodsport kind of show, Shayna Baszler was at it. Nick Khan was reportedly at it and took a picture with the founder of GCW. I mean, like, that's where he's going. Now that Vince is not involved, you know, this is pro wrestling again. This is not sports entertainment. This is a big world. There's all these other things. Obviously, they're not going to work with AEW, but a GCW, guys from GCW, guys from, like, MLW, who has a good roster, too. You got Riddle over there, Sami Callihan, stuff like that I mentioned in the story. I can see these guys maybe showing up in NXT. That's where it really benefits. Yeah, you could probably have some of them, maybe some crossover, especially with like what AEW's kind of doing with Mexican promotions like CMLL or maybe AAA. You maybe see something like that in WWE, a little bit of mix because they're always trying to get that Spanish-speaking audience and stuff like that. But if WWE is up for grabs for the Forbidden Door, I mean, TNA is going to be in there. TNA already has a relationship. I know Scott D'Amore leaving maybe affects it, but the new ownership would be stupid if they didn't try to work with them a little bit.
Right.
If you're New Japan, and if WWE is willing to work with you, I don't know how you say, oh, no, Tony's great, we want to keep working with Tony. No. If WWE wants to work with New Japan, you do it. Is this something Tony Khan and AEW should be very worried about? Because that's their thing. You know, now they're not doing the best storylines. Okay, granted, we'll give them the best wrestling. Cool. If you love 25-minute matches, great. Go to watch AEW. But the thing is, they have the open Forbidden Door. They have the CMLL guys. They have the New Japan guys. They have Ring of Honor, this kind of blending. But if WWE is open for business, should Tony Khan be scared for his life that another element that gives him something might be gone?
They really should have that thought in the back of their mind. I would be a little worried if I were them, you know. And that honestly might have led into the kind of the panic button they're hitting with the footage that they're advertising for AEW Dynamite this Wednesday. You know, just throwing stuff at the wall. It really reeks a little bit of desperation. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, WWE is the biggest game in town. If they want to play with New Japan, if they want to play with whoever they want to play with, that's a conversation that needs to be had if you're on the other side. You'd be stupid if you don't.
Yep.
And, you know, it leads to a lot of interesting possibilities, you know, and, you know, even something as little as like Julia signing with NXT, you know what I mean? Like Rossy Ogawa has famously split from Stardom and is looking to start up a new promotion. If that new promotion instantly works with WWE, that's a channel for some absolutely tremendous Joshi, you know, female Japanese talent to come straight into NXT or WWE. And that's just one possibility. Like you mentioned GCW, you mentioned TNA. Just for a freshening up of like having talents come in for special events like the Rumble or a featured match on a pay-per-view like they did with Jushin Liger a couple of years ago in NXT. And, you know, reverse, you know, you could send some talent out to a GCW like they did with Shayna Baszler.
Yes. Yep.
Or, you know, what they did with William Regal's son, who I always forget his name, and that's so bad. But, like, he went out and worked a couple of Japanese shows. You know, it'd be a great almost like excursion program, you know what I mean? Like a you know, a young talent program that like New Japan does. They have somebody promising in NXT, they can send them out to Japan for some seasoning, or send them to Mexico for some seasoning, or send them to the Indies for some seasoning. A lot of that, you know, opening up to that just makes a whole lot of sense, and it's just another way of WWE to differentiate themselves from what they have been for the last couple of decades. And kind of really bring in a whole new fan base and embrace that new regime and that new attitude that people are loving about them. So yeah, it opens up a wealth of possibilities, and it really does take away a lot of the intrigue that AEW initially had, because, you know, WWE is able to do that now, and, you know, it's a little bit of a scary proposition for AEW.
And it just shows you the power of WWE, because there was a lot of things that happened at Royal Rumble, but after Royal Rumble, Jordan Grace was one of the biggest talking points. Like, people
She was tremendous.
were like, oh, Yeah, like, who is this? Like,
Yeah.
and they didn't bring her in a little bit and she was eliminated. Like, they gave her a good shine. They promoted her a little bit after the fact. You know, like, if you didn't know her, you were like, who's this? Wow, I'm going to see her again. Where is she from? And if you didn't know her, like, oh my God, this is great. This is unbelievable. So, you know, to have that kind of reach that WWE has, 100 million YouTube subscribers, and the crazy thing, they have a social, like, it helps your company, but you know, and there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, what's the benefit of WWE? They're the big gorilla in the industry, but there is a benefit, because the thing is, WWE has hit this popularity level right now because they've reignited their cool factor. Like Rock says, they're cool again. Wrestling is cool again, or really WWE is cool again. And whatever WWE, it stirs the entire industry pot. And could you imagine, like, just on a fan level, for Wrestle Kingdom or for major New Japan show, AJ or Cody's there? Because they have roots. That would be phenomenal. But let's move away from there. Randy Orton at Wrestle Kingdom. How unbelievable would something like that be? And that works for WWE. It makes, because they're always looking to expand globally as much as, and they're already in Japan. But it just, if anybody was away from WWE and saw Randy Orton and Wrestle Kingdom, like, it'd blow their mind. They'd be curious and they want to see what's going on in WWE, that something like this could even happen. Yeah. So those kinds of possibilities, it's super exciting, and Tony should be very scared. Like, the product hasn't been good, and we're gonna for sure talk about this in future episodes of the show. And this is the element that really helps them. And honestly, for me, I think it hurts them because they do too much time. They give too much TV time to people that not in the company, that they're not paying, and not giving time to the people that they're paying. But either way, for the diehards that love this stuff, that's the thing, for the selling point, to lose that. I mean, the people at New Japan, I'm sure loyalty is great, but if WWE comes a calling, or if they come calling and they want to work with Noah, and they're like, well, I don't want Noah to be the big star, they got WWE help, well, let's work with WWE. You know, it's business. It makes too much business sense for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And it's super exciting to think of that. Ooh, just you mentioning Randy Orton showing up at Wrestle Kingdom, we got a little taste of that back in the day when Jericho first showed up to fight Kenny Omega. That dream match brought a lot of eyes to the product. Multiply that by 10 if WWE's included in official capacity. It's tremendous stuff, and it makes a whole lot of business sense. So, yeah, if I was New Japan, I would at least pick up the phone, entertain that phone call.
All right, that is it for this first edition of Many to Come of the Parts Unknown podcast. And of course, as I mentioned last time, like, share, subscribe to the channel, send us questions, comment, give us your thoughts, maybe future topics that we can talk about, because we're willing to talk about WWE, AEW, New Japan, anything in the business. Hopefully in the future we'll maybe have interviews and stuff like that. But, of course, I am Jason Burgos. He is Hollywood Jose Maldonado. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye.